Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Lori Franzo, president and owner of the ComforCare Senior Services franchise location. They are a premier home care franchise that offers in-home care across the U.S. and Canada, aiming to help seniors maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. They provide a wide range of services, including personal care, Alzheimer's, and dementia care, along with respite care and medication reminders. Their mission is to improve the quality of life for each client and family that they serve. Now, Lori has been in the home care industry since 2000 and became president of ComforCare Senior Services and sole owner, in 2003. She currently oversees the operations in Slidell and New Orleans in Louisiana, where her agency is recognized as a Dementia-Wise office. Under her leadership, the company has expanded its support for seniors in multiple settings, including private residences and hospitals. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. Imagine being able to give your employees free access to doctors, therapists, and prescription medications in a way that actually puts more money in your staff's pockets and the company's too. As an example, one recent client with 450 employees boosted net profits over $412,000 a year. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, the president, founder, and owner of ComforCare Home Care, Lori Franzo. Appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
And thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it.
So you have owned a ComforCare franchise for over 20 years. I think coming up on 25.
Correct. It's been 22 years. I'm actually going into my 23rd year.
23rd year. Okay. How did that opportunity come about?
Well, I actually, before this job working with seniors, I had a whole nother career. But I wanted something different, something that made me feel different, a little more importance in my life where I could service people. I like to work with people, care about people. And I got a job working on the council at the Council on Aging. And from there, I was director of an adult daycare center. And in this experience, I saw the need for quality home care. Back 25 years ago, there was a lot of situations where people were hiring people off the street. There was abuse. There was things going on. And when I worked for the Council on Aging, I had to resolve and help a lot of people who were struggling in these times. And I felt that we needed to have quality care, quality caregivers, and people who actually oversaw this and made a difference. So I began to research many different home care franchises out there, and I felt the need to go to a franchise even though I knew a lot about elderly, I didn't have an experience in this area. And I've always been a person who believes in learning. You have to learn something. That's how a lot of businesses fail, because they don't know what they're getting into before they did it. So I felt the need for a franchise would assist me and teach me how to better run my company. And through many interviews with different home care franchises, I selected ComforCare. They had the same ideas and philosophy that I did, and really grounded in the way it wasn't so focused on dollar. It was focused on the individual. So at that point, I went ahead and purchased a franchise, and I started my business with their help.
So you looked at a lot of different franchisors, other people that could help you get your foothold, teach you sort of the ropes, help get you set up. You went with ComforCare specifically because their ideals matched your values.
Correct.
Where it wasn't just such a big focus on the bottom line. It was, how can we help people? Can you maybe give an example of how their values showed up during that interview process before you even got a chance to work with them?
Well, I really found that at the time, the founder of the company, his communication with me, and they're originally from Detroit, and I went up to Detroit and I met everybody. And I had met other organizations as well. But when I walked in the office, immediately they began to teach me and give me their philosophy and explain to me that they weren't here to take all my money, take everything that from me. It was, we're not going to do anything until we feel you're secure in your learning environment. So we're going to give you the time to develop your business, to get started before they began to collect royalties or any of that. They
Really?
were
They don't
willing
start collecting
to,
royalties right at the beginning.
right. They were willing to give me the time to establish myself. And really, the founder was very persistent, in the sense that he he said he saw something in me that I was the right person for them, because they wanted people who truly cared about the individual, who cared about what they're doing, who knew how to interact with elderly people, who knew, had the experience, but also had the heart for it. And there was just a connection there. I just felt comfortable. It wasn't, and like I said, I met with other franchisors, and the first thing was money, money, money. This is what we expect from you. We expect this, we expect that. And I never felt they were connecting with me on a personal level. Whereas with ComforCare, and still to this day, they are still an extremely amazing organization that if you need them, they're there. If you're having troubling times, they're there. And truthfully, they have helped me through some of the most difficult times in my life, up and down business-wise. I mean, we went through Katrina, and I lost my entire business in Katrina.
Wow.
So I had to start all over again. And they didn't expect me from day one to come up with how am I going to pay my royalties when I had no business. They stood by me through all these crises, and they continued to allow me to flourish and to put myself back on track and to continue my business. And so it was absolutely 100% right decision to go with ComforCare.
That's amazing. It wasn't just a sort of a sales shtick that they put on up front and then they couldn't deliver.
And they didn't deliver. They
were
delivered
what
100-fold.
as advertised from the beginning up until present day. That's great.
That they were going to be here for us.
That's awesome. Okay, so talk us through the actual services that you provide.
Okay, well, we provide a full range of services, and there's a card that we give out, 50 ways we can help. But our main focus is really personal care, making sure that their hygiene is kept up, they're getting a good shower and a good bath and keeping clean, and making sure everything with their physical body. Doesn't matter whether they need simple assist or they need full assist, because we do handle bedbound, hospice clients, all of that. Our goal is to protect the body and the mind, and we want to ensure that that is always taken care of. And then, of course, we do many other things. We do laundry, we do light housekeeping, we do meal prep, we do transportation, medication reminders, which is so important, because if our elderly are not taking their medications on time and on schedule, or they forget to take them for days on end, that's when you deal with a lot of our elderly start to decline because they're not doing what they need to do at home. And so, and we can help them with, we assist with, keeping their house clean, bills, whatever it is, really. We will pretty much help with anything that they need, because our goal is to keep that person on track. And every person is different, and we find even just going into a home a couple times a week for somebody, an elderly person has nobody, and they're alone most of the time. You have someone coming in and making sure that their house is straightened up and there's food in the refrigerator. I mean, God, how many times we go into an elderly person, they have no food in the house.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's not good. So if you take not taking your medicines right, if you take not eating right, all of these things, your environment becomes chaotic and messy. Those things wreak havoc on our elderly. And so if we can improve that, even in small increments, then that makes a difference in someone's life.
So with the 20 plus years that you've been in the industry, Lori, what are some of the big changes that you've seen happen?
Well, I feel that when I started this business, there was a lot more of simple companion cases where, yes, mom needed just some company, and there wasn't, I'd say, it wasn't as great a need for the heavy duty physical care. But what we're finding now is in these years of evolving, our work has become more advanced, you would say. In other words, we deal with a lot of people that are in the crisis moment. Families are calling. Mom's coming out of the hospital. She's, not walking anymore, or she's not doing well anymore, and she needs transfers and a lot of physical care and cleaning, from transfer to bed to chair. There's a lot more physical work involved. And the increase in dementia is unbelievable. Like, it is, to me, so many clients. And I would honestly tell you 90% of our clients that we're taking care of have some type of dementia.
Wow.
And if we don't care for them in the proper manner, then we can actually hurt them more than we're helping them. So learning how to communicate with a person who has dementia, to understand the going into a home and looking and seeing what's going on there and understanding what's going on, and then creating that care plan so that particular client, which our care plans are dedicated to the individual, then we can actually begin to improve the quality of their life. But a lot of times it is where they are already in the crisis situation. Families don't know what to do or how to handle things. And so our caregivers have to be very trained in physical care. And that is so important. We do a lot of end of life care, working with hospice agencies. So, we're dealing with bedbound people who need to be cleaned and turned and taken care of, and understanding that end of life, what that person has experienced. So I find that a lot of the work we're doing is way more advanced than just watching TV with mom.
So you said that you've noticed an unbelievable increase in dementia. Do you think it's just better diagnosed now, or do you think that there's been like an actual substantial increase in instances of it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you go back, people didn't understand what dementia was sometimes back in the day, and I can go back into my grandparents and ages like that when they talked about a family member who wasn't clear. Sometimes they thought they were crazy, or they lock them up because they thought they were, had psychiatric problems. They didn't recognize dementia. They didn't understand what was going on with their loved one. Um, and but and I remember with my grandmother had dementia, and understanding, that kind of pushed me. I wish I knew what I knew now, that I could have helped my grandmother, because there would have been so many tools that we have now that help dementia people that could have helped her. And I think there is an increase in dementia. I find that, I don't know, and you go back to I read a lot of information, a lot about Alzheimer's, dementia, and a lot of this is happening from, and a lot of it is, I believe, contributed to some of our lifestyles and some of the things we've been eating, or chemicals we've been taking into our body over the years, or medicines that have actually affected our brain and doesn't necessarily always help us. So I do believe that, and from all statistics, there is a definite increase in dementia, types of, dementia, and how it affects individuals.
And you're certified as a Dementia-Wise office. What does this certification represent? What does this mean?
Well, it is a certification that has been approved by the Alzheimer's Foundation. Our team at our office developed this program, and it is a program that helps not only our caregivers, but it can also help families how to interact with a person with dementia. And maybe, for example, and I still see this constantly every day, you have someone going in, and their wife has dementia. And instead of trying to work with them and communicate with them and understand where they're coming from, they're either yelling at them or they're saying, you don't remember this, or you don't know how to do this anymore. I don't understand you. And they get frustrated and aggravated. And then you see the person with dementia getting frustrated and aggravated. And it develops into a very toxic relationship that doesn't have to be. And it's really this training, which all our caregivers have to go through in order to be hired by our company. You have to do this training. And we've actually, ComforCare has developed part 2. So we're now training on part 2 of dementia. And really that's gotten more involved in the types of dementia and how to interact, because each type of dementia requires sometimes different types of interaction with your clients. So it's teaching them how to interact, how to walk in, how to read the room, how to read that person, how to understand when to communicate, when to back off, when to just leave them alone and walk away and not expect them to do what you want them to do at that moment, because it doesn't work that way. And if you constantly push, 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 all you're doing is pushing them away and frustrating them more. It's knowing how to calm down. It's knowing how to communicate, how to regroup and have them do something else for a little while and then try to get them in the shower. You can't push people with dementia. You have to be kind, soft-spoken, interactive, but in a kind way. If you think you're going to win by constantly saying, don't you remember? Don't you remember? No, they can't remember. If they could remember, they would remember, but they can't. So those expectations have to change.
And so you talked about how we have a lot more tools now than like when your grandmother had dementia. The training that you just mentioned clearly is one of those tools. Is there something else that's worth mentioning?
Well, I think that I really think that's the whole thing of it, is really for the caregivers to understand the type of dementia this person has and what are the different signs with those different dementias. I mean, you've got Lewy body dementia, which is very specific, okay?
What
With
is
Lewy
that?
bodies, for example, you can have hallucinations. You tend to be more aggressive. There are certain things that give you cues. So once we do that assessment and our nurse creates that care plan with our families or clients, we know the type of dementia, and then we can give specific tools to those caregivers on the type of dementia they're dealing with so they know specifically how to interact.
Mm. Has this training been sort of consistent throughout your time in the home care industry, or was there maybe fewer requirements early on?
Well, no, I think this has been more of the last 10 years evolving. I think as the country is beginning to recognize dementia and the different types of dementia, and they're learning more and more about it, I think more and more tools are coming out, more and more understanding of dementia and what's happening with it. The fix was in the beginning, medicine, medicine, medicine. Let's just give them drugs, give them drugs. But now they're learning that drugs are not always the answer. It's a lot of times it's interaction. It's how you handle that individual. And yes, medication plays a big part in it, and the proper medication can help with anxiety levels and all of that. But it's also knowing not to over medicate people. It's knowing when to give them just enough to keep them calm, but really teaching our families how to interact with their loved ones. That's so important. And
But big part of it is still maintaining human interaction, right?
maintaining human interaction is extremely important. And sometimes when you go into a home or family members say, oh, mom's forgetting everything. She don't remember nothing. She can't remember. But if they haven't seen anybody in a week and there's nobody coming in their home and they have nobody to talk to and they're just maybe listening to a noise on TV, we can appear that we have more short-term memory loss than we don't. And when you get someone in there who's interacting that person and bringing them back to who they were, maybe cooking with them. Maybe they can't cook fully anymore, but they can still do little things in the kitchen, helping them continue to live the life that they lived and tap into those things that who they were as a person. Whether they love to read, or did they like playing games, or did they like to cook, or was clean home important to them, or, what was important to them as an individual. And if we can tap into those personality traits and connections that they've lived their life, then you can develop a rapport, and then that particular person with the dementia can learn to trust. And when you develop a bond with a caregiver and that client, it can be quite magical and quite life-changing in making that difference. Because if you just walk in and think everybody's the same, then you've missed the mark. You need to know who this person is so that you can use the best tools possible in that toolbox to interact with that particular individual.
And I'm glad that we hit on this, Lori, because I'm a big believer that safe human connection is some of the best medicine that we have out there, whether it's for someone who's struggling with dementia, or it's somebody who's going through a rough period in their life. Maybe they're dealing with addiction issues, depression, anxiety. I think being able to be around people that you feel comfortable with and have that interaction, do things together, have conversations, there's something, I don't know, almost magical about it.
It is. It's so important. I know technology is changing, and, it's all kind of crazy these days, but human connection matters, and it matters. And especially when you're dealing with an elderly person, not only do they have dementia, but they have depression. And I'm glad you brought that up, because depression is big part of things. And, family members sometimes don't always understand that not only is your loved one struggling with short-term memory loss, but because of that memory loss, they're depressed. And depression can be so debilitating on people. But if you can bring them out of that depression and raise them up a little bit and have that human kindness and interaction, it makes a world of difference.
So, Lori, you've helped seniors primarily in home settings, but I believe also in hospital settings. How does the care that you deliver differ based on the setting?
Okay, well, generally in the home, like I said, it's whatever needs to be done in the home to what needs to be done with them. But if we're going into a hospital, for example, you've got an elderly person who's in the hospital. Truthfully, elderly people should not be left alone in a hospital, because there's too much going on, especially if they have dementia. It's too confusing them. They can't interact with the doctor. They can't interact with the nurse. They're not following up on what's going on. They're not retaining what's going on. So a lot of times we're in there to back up that family. And families can't sit there 24 hours a day at a hospital. It's too much on anybody, So having a qualified caregiver be the eyes and ears for your loved one to ensure, one, that they're being taken care of properly, that their needs are being met. But then what happens when the doctor shows up and nobody's there? That caregiver is retaining that information and asking the questions that the family needs, so that we can make sure we relay back to the family what's happening with dad or mom, and we can communicate that. So that's important in a hospital, to have that connection. We also do a lot of work in assisted livings, memory care. So it doesn't really matter where you are. Home care can make a difference, because none of us can be anywhere 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And the services that you provide go far beyond basic personal care. Can you tell us about programs like Joyful Memories Music and Gateway Fall Prevention?
Yes. Well, Gateway fall prevention has always been a big part of what we do. And we always do when we go into a home, we do a fall risk assessment. And that assessment lets us look at the home, okay, and say, okay, mom's been falling, but we see a lot of problems here. How is that shower? Do they have a handheld shower head to come down? Do they have a seat in their shower? Are there rugs where they're tripping on those rugs? What do we see as some of the issues, how their falls are happening? And by doing a fall risk assessment, then we can actually start to prevent those falls. And so we give the families a list of, these are the things we suggest that you change inside the home, so that this way we can prevent people from falling. Because we all know that a lot of elderly people, a major fall, like a broken hip or whatever, is the thing sometimes that takes them out, to be honest with you. So if we can prevent those falls and keep them safe, so our fall risk assessment and our then we create that care plan on how to prevent those falls inside the home. And music is very important, and music, and actually we do have a music therapist on staff here in our office. But through Joyful Melodies, it is really tapping into part of the brain that can function beyond anything else. Music is always there. And then listening to music and playing music and then going back to the music, especially that people loved as they were growing up, it touches part of the brain that some of us can't get through in any other way. So music is an extremely valuable tool.
In
And that's
terms of
how,
accessing memories that weren't there before, is that what you
correct.
mean?
Yes, it actually brings them back. Like maybe there was a time, maybe their husbands passed, but then they used to listen to Frank Sinatra all the time together. So tapping into that and really then putting that music on and maybe finding a way to communicate with that client. Tell me a little bit, does this make you think of something? You know, you're not pushing them to remember something, but sometimes it just brings in that cue. For example, I had a lady that I used to work with, and she did not talk, she did not speak, she still couldn't walk, but she was very agitated. She lived in constant anxiety, pacing. There was nothing that would calm her. Well, we began to play music for her on a regular basis. She would actually sit down in her chair and she would be so calm and so still, and she would begin to tap her feet and she would hum to the music, and you could see how it touched her that no other way would touch her. So music is an extremely valuable tool, and that is why ComforCare created Joyful Melodies to not only we do it in assisted livings and so on and so forth, but in individual homes, using music as that tool to tap into memories that may still be there, or to just
And
send
are
that
you
little
trying
message
different
to the brain.
kinds of music to see what they respond to?
Yeah, a lot of times we try to learn about the person, but it also kind of goes with their age and the era that they lived in, and what connected with them. And so, it we tend to do go back, of course, to the older music because most of our clients are elderly, and that is the time that they connected into. And actually, sometimes music can agitate. So some of the music that people listen to these days, you could see if you're playing that music, you're agitating them because that music is not familiar to them. So you
Yeah.
want to be selective and you want to be really patient specific as to their era and their times and what kind of music they valued. And sometimes in a lot of our questions in our assessment tell us what they liked. What did they listen to? Some people liked Elvis, some people like Frank, some people like just listen to classical music. So it's learning what they like and trying different things and tapping into it. And a lot of times it can evolve communication and get them to open up. And you just see sparks kind of fly with music.
Now, Lori, at the beginning of the interview, you talked about how, because your business is based in Slidell and New Orleans, Louisiana, and when Katrina, the big hurricane, came through, it wiped your business out. What was that recovery process like for you?
It was a very difficult time. We had just started the company. The company was growing. We were thriving. It was an amazing time. Then Katrina came through and literally took out everything. There was no business. There was no people. There was no caregivers. There was nobody. And it literally took 4 months before I could come back to Louisiana. But my goal was to come back. We did have 3 clients that we kept throughout Katrina, and we had 3 caregivers that took their time, left Louisiana with our clients, and stayed
Wow.
with them for almost 3 months. And
Wow.
so that was a very dedicated, those are very dedicated people. But when we came back, we had to find an office again. The office was gone. Everything was gone. Homes were gone. So we came back, and like I said, Comfort Care was just amazingly supportive of us and helping us get back on our feet. And we just started over again. We found an office space that was dry and didn't get damaged. And so we rented that office and we began trying to hire caregivers. But what was difficult about that time is that there were so many clients. People were coming back and needing help with their loved ones, but we didn't have employees. The
Mhm.
employees were still all gone. I mean, their homes were destroyed. So it was a constant challenge of trying to help people, but trying to get employees come back to work. I mean, it was really literally a year for us to get back on our feet and really start to do solid business again.
Whether we're talking before Katrina, after, or present day, what have been the most effective ways for you to find customers or for them to find you?
Well, marketing is important, and really our referral sources are key. It's really connecting with your referral sources where business, when they see a need for someone who needs home care, whether it's home health, hospice, hospitals, all these different areas, marketing is important. It's keeping your name out there. It's making sure that people know who you are, and really a solid reputation. I mean, that's what I have always was so I don't know if I'm saying this, but it's always been so important to me, is that our reputation remains solid, and that no matter what adversity we face, we are there. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to treat people right to the best of our ability. And yes, we can't make everybody happy. We all know how that is these days, but we do our best to make sure our reputation stays solid, and that goes out to our long-term referrals, and they know who we are as a company. Oh, I'm so sorry. And they know how we care about people. And so that really, I am so sorry. That really makes a difference, and in the reputation. And of course, we advertise all the time. Internet has become a big thing. So you have to constantly be up on the internet. You need Google reviews. You've got to constantly be getting your reviews from your clients, because that's going to keep your name at the top of the list. So there's a lot to marketing, and really getting out there and making sure people know you're here. Because if people don't think about home care, they don't think about it until the
Until
emergency
they need it right
arrives.
now.
Then suddenly they're like, oh my God, we need home care, And we try to advise and train people, don't wait till the last minute. I mean, you can sign up with us on an as needed basis, because maybe you just once in a while need help. Maybe you go out of town for a couple of days and somebody needs to look after mom for a couple of days. So it's setting up on an as need basis, so you're working in advance, rather than working at the crisis where suddenly mom's coming to the hospital, there's nobody to take care of her, dad's coming home and he needs 24-hour care. Sometimes people are still waiting till the crisis occurs. So it's trying to educate people on how valuable home care can be. And like, I will share with you that some people say, oh, I just don't think they can afford it. But getting someone in even 2 days a week where they have nobody, and we're making sure the house is clean, the refrigerator is full, they're taking their meds, all of those things, just on small increments, can make a difference. So we try to educate people about how home care can start small if it's what needed. The other thing that's valuable with home care, and I'll relay this too, is that we take care of young people too. It's not just
Oh,
elderly.
interesting.
So you've got someone coming out of a hospital, say had a knee replacement. Well, they live alone maybe, or they don't have the help they need. Well, using us for 2 weeks or 3 weeks so that we can get you through your crisis period, and then you're back up and running and you don't need us anymore. Home care is not just for elderly. It can be used for younger people who've had a procedure at the hospital and, then suddenly need some help on a very temporary basis.
So who do your referral partners end up being? What kinds of places, whether it's young
You're
or
looking at
old?
home health, you're looking at hospitals, you're looking at hospice. We get a lot of referrals from hospice, rehabs. People go into rehabs and then they're coming out of rehab and they need some more help at home to continue thriving. So there are many different reasons why our referral sources refer to us. It's getting people to tune in at those places to understand, hey, this person could use home care because this person is going home, and are they going to decline as soon as they leave you if there's nobody there to make sure they're taking their meds? making sure there's food in the refrigerator, making sure that they're continuing their exercises, and that's something that's important to us. We work with therapists who can give us range of motion so we can work on those range of motions with our clients, making sure they're getting to those follow-up doctor's appointments. All of those things can make a difference.
So the other side of the equation is it's sort of this, you want to find the clients, you want them to find you, your referral partners help there. And then on the back end, you need to have the care providers sort of ready to go to fulfill that service.
Right.
What have you found success with in terms of locating, recruiting, and retaining those folks?
Okay. Well, it is a constant challenge, and it has become more of a challenge these days than ever, getting the right employee. And so, fortunately here at ComforCare, we are very fortunate that we have a lot of long-term employees. And to me, that's the most valuable thing. If you have someone that you hire and they stay with you, then, we have people, I have some caregivers who've been with me 17 years. I mean, that's phenomenal to have people who work for you that long. But you have to constantly be hiring because generally in this industry, you're looking at about a 33% turnover of your employees.
Wow.
So, you've got to constantly be bringing people in, but they have to be qualified. They have to have experience. Then they have to be willing to go through our training. They have to be willing to do what it takes to become the best caregiver. But you are constantly looking. You are constantly hiring. And, we're always running ads on different platforms and just trying to connect with people in many different ways. And we're quite extensive in our interview process and what we do to hire an individual. They have to do 13 hours of training before they can even though they may have 20 years of experience, they still have to do our initial training. I mean, it is just part of getting that caregiver. But then retaining them is so important. And that's by offering different types of benefits that can help them. 401ks and paid time off programs and different health programs and different things that we can offer them that make them want to stay with you. So different tools that can help retain them is extremely important.
Yeah,
I know you brought up about health insurance and benefits through some type of supplemental health insurance that can help too. So it's having the tools in place so that you can offer them something more than what the home care down the street is offering them.
Mm. What do you think the future of in-home care is? Are there innovations or big changes that you think are coming?
Well, I think technology is a big part of what's changing in home care, only because, it used to be a lot more paperwork, but everything's done through computers now and scheduling and sending out, schedules to the caregivers and at them being able to access and also being able to access shifts. So, now there's open shifts reports. So if caregivers want to work more, they can access those things and having those tools in place where they can get their pay stub whenever they want to because they have a way to access it on their own. They're not constantly calling the office, or it's really a lot of the technology that comes into place and really the training has evolved so much and learning all these different tools and constantly training them in different avenues. I think that has become a big part of what we do to ensure that the caregivers that we have are doing a good job. And truthfully, salaries need to increase. And, but we've always believed that if we can pay them as much and the best our employees can, we're going to do that because it may hurt us on whatever our bottom line. But if they're with you and they know they're being paid well and we value who they are as individuals, then they're going to stay with you. They're not going to leave you. They're going to stay here because they recognize that this is a good company who looks out for us.
Lori, in my experience, some of our greatest challenges end up being some of our biggest teachers. I'd like to hear about a serious challenge that you've overcome, whether it's personal or professional. How'd you get through it, and what did you learn coming through the other side?
Well, I've had to learn, I think, I've had a lot of ups and downs challenges. And in this business, financials are a constant up and down because of the fact that you never know. You could have all of these hours and all of these clients. And literally, I have lost 4 people in a week who passed away on me. So it's knowing how to constantly regroup, restart, and have the patience to know that it's going to circle back around. That took a long time to learn because, you right away panic, you right away get stressed, you right away start to think, oh, what's going to happen? But I've learned over the years not to get so stressed out over it, to learn how to face the challenges, think about them slowly, and how to make the proper moves to move forward in another direction. I mean, I think that's part of any business owner who in the beginning is like so stressed out about how they're going to manage. But I have gone through Katrina. I have gone through the oil spill in 2009. I mean, I have gone through so many ups and downs in the financial aspects of things. And it's really a matter of making sure you're putting some money on the side for those times. You can't just think you're going to survive if you have no backup. So you've got to be willing to have the tenacity to get through it and to know how to keep working your business and keep moving forward. And really about hiring the right staff. And that's been truly something I've learned how to do. And truthfully, I am so blessed because I have so many people in my office that have worked for me for years, and we tend to have retention. And it's really, for me, it's constantly connecting in with them and ensuring that they're happy at their job or whatever their stresses are. I'm listening to them, hearing them, and helping them resolve those stresses that they're dealing with. So it's really about growth and understanding how to run a good company.
You mentioned just finding a way to get through it. I'm curious to hear more specifically how you've gotten through some of these challenges. Are you leaning on friends and family? Are you part of different peer groups? Maybe the franchise network itself. Perhaps you've got a mentor. Any any people or groups of people that you've been able to go to
Yeah,
when you go
actually,
through these?
my franchise group has been an amazing mentor to me, especially in the first, 10, 15 years. Of course, I've grown so much that I may not need that as much, but they were constant mentors to me. And constantly, when I had something I didn't know how to have an answer to, and to this day, if I don't have an answer, that's where I go. I go to them. But also being out in the community and meeting different people and different organizations and different groups and connecting with those people and listening to people and sitting down at a table with people in different organizations who have a different perspective um, and can really constantly be teaching you. I'm also a certified senior advisor, and that's something that I did started began in the organization 22 years ago. When I decided to do this, and I don't know if you're familiar with the organization, but it's called Certified Senior Advisor. And in that, I am a constantly under education. So in order to keep that and my ability to go out and talk to people about different aspects of being a senior, whether it's Medicare or Medicaid, understanding long-term care insurance, understanding home care, understanding home health, understanding hospice, understanding how all these things work together. I have done so much training with this certification over the years that it's given me tremendous knowledge. And so for me to walk into a room and be able to have a conversation with somebody, whether it's a hospice agency or a case manager, or it's really given me such a broad view of all these health services so that I can equip myself to have conversations and intelligent conversations with people who are in this industry. So
Mm.
that's been a big part of my training for me.
I want to go back to oil spill of 2009. How did that have an impact on your business?
Well, again, and in that 2009, I will share with you that the Medicaid system in Louisiana is not in very good shape.
Mm.
And it is still not after all these years. And so 2009, we had the major oil spill. Everything was shutting down here. There were no employees. It was, people were not spending money. Home care was just really struggling. And on top of that, the same year, we had to make a big decision. When I started this company, I wanted to help everybody. It didn't matter how much money you earned or what you could afford or didn't afford. If I could help you, I was going to do it. And the Medicaid system in Louisiana at that time helped people, and we would get reimbursed. It wasn't a lot, but it was still enough for us to be able to assist Medicaid clients. However, in that same year as the oil spill, I had to make a very difficult decision. I had to back out of Medicaid and taking Medicaid clients. And the reason is because the state decreased their reimbursement and still to this day have not ever brought it back up. They are actually reimbursing less than what a standard employee caregiver wage is. So we had to get out of the Medicaid business, and really it broke me at that time because it was not something I ever wanted to do. But as a business owner, I had to choose, am I going to keep this company open, or I'm going to have to let the Medicaid go? So
those are hard business decisions to have to make, especially when they pull so hard the other direction from what your personal values are.
Right. It was very difficult because my philosophy was to help. And I also knew that we were losing money, tons and tons of money, because I might be paying you at that time, and you're going back 2009. I mean, I might have been paying you $12 an hour. And if they're reimbursing you 11, well, that doesn't take much, understanding of business that you can't continue in that process. So we had to drop Medicaid. I became a big advocate to try to change Medicaid for many, many years in the state of Louisiana. I wrote letters. I tried to connect with our politicians. I tried to do different things to say, hey, what are you doing? This is not helping, because now we're hurting the people that we were supposed to be helping. But politicians don't always listen. The wheel doesn't always change. And I finally had to accept it, that there was not going to be a change. And to this day, in the state of Louisiana, there are very, very few Medicaid providers left.
Is that right?
Because they cannot afford to hire qualified, quality people and get reimbursed and lose money. So you can't do it. So that was a big challenge for me to have to overcome, to figure out, how do I move on? And yes, it was a good part of my business. So I had to regroup and think, how do I continue having my business grow without that chunk,
So is it mostly private pay, or other insurance products able
so right now,
to help?
Basically, we are generally, private pay is a big part of our business. Long-term care insurance, which not everybody has, but I highly recommend, if you can afford a policy, get a long-term care policy, because we do have a lot of clients who are on long-term care who their policy covers home care, whether it's a small amount or a lot of it. It just depends on each individual policy. Now, we do have a few other resources. Of course, we get workman's comp cases, things like that, because workman's comp refer to us. But some of the big changes that are happening right now is that health insurance is beginning to recognize home care as a valuable tool. Health insurance has never covered home care. They cover home health, which is very different than home care. They never covered home care. Well, there are two insurance companies out there in Louisiana right now. There's one called People's Health, and the other is Humana. Humana is now offering limited amount, but some home care. So in other words, they'll refer a client to us who's coming out of a hospital that needs some help for maybe a certain amount of time, or they get 12 visits, or they may get 20 visits. They're assigning them visits to help them get through the crisis of coming out of a hospital. Because as we know, hospitals are concerned about readmission rates. It's a big thing right now. And they get dinged if they're constantly readmitting their patients. So now some home cares or some insurance companies are beginning to recognize, hey, if we use a home care agency,
that's huge,
and get them in there, and they can help. We can't afford long-term, but we can afford at least maybe 20 visits for 8 hours. Then we know that person's got their feet on the ground and they're moving forward, and they're going to keep them out of the hospital.
Which is much more expensive for the insurance company to have to pay for
paying
anyways.
For that little bit of home care that they're. So that is, I say, one of the biggest changes. The other thing is very amazing now is the veteran care. Veterans here in the state of Louisiana, I know across the country, the Veterans Administration has improved their home care so much. We have a massive amount of clients. That's not something we don't pursue the individual. It comes out of the VA. They send us clients when they have someone that they assess that needs home care. They will go ahead and send us the person's information. We reach out to them, and the VA is providing home care, sometimes up to 20 hours a week of care for that individual, for that veteran. And when I tell you, it makes a world of difference, because our veterans struggle. They struggle so much. And a lot of times they can't afford to pay for home care. But the VA has stepped up. They're doing it right. They're running an amazing program. And this really has evolved, and it's getting better and better over the last 6-7 years. And it's amazing what the VA is doing for their veterans these days through home care.
Any other trends that you're seeing like that? I mean, both of those seem pretty significant. The VA, Humana, the other group that you mentioned. Anything else that looks encouraging for the home healthcare industry?
Well, I think really the more hospitals and health insurance begin to recognize what home care can do, I'm hoping that will continue to evolve. I mean, I think it's still a very slow process, and still there are so many people that don't even understand what home care does. But I think those are some of the primary things, is getting our government to understand the value of home care, insurance companies understanding the value, and hospitals understanding the value. And I think some hospitals are starting to recognize that, hey, home health is one thing, but home health only goes in once, twice a week. And they do some therapy, but who's taking care of that person to see if they have food or if they're taking their meds? So hospitals are beginning to take a turnaround to recognize that home care is a valuable tool. So I think it's just coming more to the forefront of realizing, just like hospice, just like home health, home care is right there at the top of the rank with those others.
What's the difference between home care and home health?
Okay, well, home health is the doctor has to prescribe an order for it, and the nurse comes in and they'll review their medications. They'll make sure they're whatever's happening inside the home, and generally the nurse will come in and do their blood pressures, check, make sure they're okay. They're visiting a half hour in and out, maybe just to make sure the person's not going totally off track.
More of a short medical visit.
Short medical release, and then there's PT and OT. So if you have you need some physical care, they'll come in and truthfully, Medicare has been taking a lot of hits. So like they used to maybe get PT and OT for 3 months, now they're getting it for 6 weeks. So even that's decreased a lot. So that's all that home health does. Whereas home care can be in there from 4 hours a day to 24 hours a day, just depending on the need of the client. And we'll assist with we're looking at their whole picture, their whole life, their whole self, and taking all of that into account and trying to tap into each part of that person to keep them on track and keep them healthy.
And Lori, you've mentioned multiple times in the interview how you're somebody who always wants to be learning, always wants to be growing. Is there a particular resource, a book, a podcast, a course that's been helpful for you that maybe some of our listeners might get some benefit from?
Well, honestly, I'm constantly reading. Mostly I'm a big reader. So like I have every magazine anything that's published about dementia care or Parkinson's, or all the different diseases that are out there now. And like I said, I'm a certified senior advisor. So I do get a lot of curriculum from the organization that helps me. And they're always on top of their game as to what's changing and what's evolving. And actually, we have an amazing person up at our corporate office called Stephanie. And Stephanie, she is constantly out there with different organizations and constantly staying on the new developments that are happening in diseases and sharing. So she's a big mentor to me because she brings me information that can help me learn. And so that's something that ComforCare is really good at, is that they're not just sitting back on their laurels. They're constantly trying to develop us as individuals, as business owners, to learn more, to know how how we can better serve our clients. So I really take in a lot, and truthfully, out in the field, in when I'm marketing or in the community, there are so many people that are involved and care about these subjects that if you're willing to sit down and listen and talk and have lunch and brainstorm ideas, that's a lot where I get a lot of my information from.
That's great. And Lori, I've just got one more question for you today. But before I ask it, I want to pause and do two things. First of all, everyone listening, I'm going to ask if you could just set aside a second, open up your podcast app, hit the follow or subscribe button there, maybe even leave us a comment or a review. These are ways that you will continue to get more great interviews into your feed.
Okay,
And it's a way that you can help the show and help others find us. Lori, I
absolutely.
also want to let people know the best way either to get in touch with you directly or your staff or to continue to follow your story. What would that be?
Well, you can reach us here at our office. We have two numbers. We have a 985-781-6619, or we have a New Orleans off number, which is 504-833-7726. You can reach us on either one of those numbers. You can go online and just pull up ComforCare, and you can pull up the territory that you're looking for. We're all over the United States and Canada and even overseas. You can just go online, pull up ComforCare Home Care, ComforCare Senior Services will come up, and you can find any office that you need in any area necessary. You can also reach me personally at my email, which is lfranzo@comforcare.com. I welcome anytime anybody reaching out to me personally. You can find that information on our website, my numbers, my emails. So there's so many ways to get in touch with us. Here in our office, everybody is trained, everybody knows what we do, and everybody's really good at communicating. So there's so many ways to get a hold of us. And look, you may be just reaching out because you just want to learn, or maybe you're not ready. That's okay. If we can help you to understand and have more information so that when you are ready, or when you are ready for a loved one for home care, knowing that you have options and choices and what your choices are matter to us. So whether you choose us or not, if we can educate you and give you the information you need, then we felt like we've done a good job.
Doing a little bit of homework in advance is going to pay dividends for down the road when you eventually need that help, because oftentimes it comes suddenly. And
Right.
last question I have for you, Lori. You and I reconnect a year from now, and there is one big specific thing that you're celebrating. You're very excited about it. What's that one specific thing you're celebrating a year from now?
Let me think about that. Well, I would think a year from now, the development of some of our newer programs that are coming on board. Um, And I think that's what I'm excited about because, understanding different diseases and how to handle them. We just started a new Parkinson's program,
Mm.
and we're just starting to roll this out and learn about a little bit more about Parkinson's and how to help our Parkinson's clients. So I'm hoping at that point we will be in the throes of that, and being able to train our caregivers on this program that we're developing here at Comfort Care on Parkinson's. Um, and really celebrating another year. Like I said, I've been here going on 23 years. I'm not ready to retire yet. I'm still moving forward, and really it's just developing this company to be the best it can be. And that's what I celebrate every day is us constantly having our caregivers be the best they can be and giving them the tools to make a difference, because we're so many challenges out in this world right now. And if we can help our caregivers and help our staff and help ourselves and help our families learn how to handle the things that they're dealing with, whether it's with their families, their loved ones, whether it's dementia, it's Parkinson's, or all these other diseases, cancers that we're facing, if we can help them and get them through that, and we can celebrate the differences that we make. And one of the things that I do is very important to me, and I've kept them since 22 years, is our thank yous. We get a lot of thank yous, and I break out that folder once a year, and it reminds me through all the challenges that I face, through the days where I feel discouraged, where the times I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to go on? I open that folder, and I take out that folder and I read those cards and I read those letters and I read them again. And it reminds me what we do here at ComforCare does make a difference.
I love that. Lori Franzo from the Slidell and New Orleans, Louisiana ComforCare. I want to be the first to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.